Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, So we're going to read today from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11. What's the name, what's the title of that chapter? Does anyone know? Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11. We don't have any Bhagavad Gitas there. If anyone wants to follow on their phones, they can. It's, if you look under the database, you'll find it there. So we started last week. Organize this. We stopped last week at the text number 29. So it's chapter 11, text number 29. Do you have it on the phone or do you need to look? Yeah, we can have downstairs. Do you know in the book room?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get a few?
I tried a bit.
Oh, great. That's really good.
But obviously, you always get
The which one?
you open, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I did? I think I left my key in the room. That's what I did.
would that be open?
Okay, right. So we're going to go to text number 29. Just can't bring it up there. We we came at a particular point. I'll read 28 as well. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. As the many waves of the river flowed into the ocean, so do all these great warriors enter blazing into your mouths. I see all people rushing full speed into your mouths as moths dash to destruction in a blazing wave. O Vishnu, I see you devouring all people from all sides with your flaming mouths, covering all the universe with your effulgence. You are manifest with terrible, scorching rays. O Lord of Lords, so fierce a form, please tell me who you are. I offer my obeisances unto you. Please be gracious to me. You are the primal Lord. I want to know all about you, for I do not know what your mission is. So that's a very nice, pleasant scene, isn't it? It's called the Universal Form. It's probably the most gruesome part of the Bhagavad Gita, the actual raw reality of the material world comes forward to Arjuna. And it's an aspect of Krishna that he didn't know about, because like he normally just sort of hung out with Krishna, they went, they had a good time together, they sat down and talked together in the same bed, and they just discussed everything under the sun. But in this particular time, the real position of Krishna became clear, that this is not just a normal living entity that you're talking to. This is the supreme source of everything, of all living entities. And so you can imagine, and this discussion is going on in a battlefield. It's in the middle of a battlefield. So that Arjuna here is looking up at Krishna, and Krishna is showing him this incredible form that he has. And all the armies on both sides are looking on, and they're kind of like, what's going on here? And the only other people who know what's going on, or can see what's going on, are Sanjaya and Dhritarashtra. Because Sanjaya is seeing all this in his through his transcendental vision, and he's relaying it to Dhritarashtra. Although I'm not absolutely sure if Dhritarashtra, it doesn't really say that he knows what's actually being described. He might be like the other two parties, the people just looking on. What's happening? What's happening? So it's not clear whether Sanjaya actually explained everything to Dhritarashtra at this point. I haven't looked into any of the acharyas what they said like that. But I'm sure it seems to be that he is looking on though, because he's seeing the picture in his heart. And whether the picture that he's seeing is the same as what all the other members of the army are seeing, I don't know. I tend to think he might be seeing something more profound. And that's my only guess for what that's worth. But anyway, he's asking Krishna, who are you? Who are you? You're my friend. You just suddenly you're this amazing person, and completely shattered. He completely can't hold his composure. So this happens at times when people are in great sense of fright, and they're very frightened. They don't know what to do. They're completely shuddering. That it's something that's so exceptional is happening. But he manages to ask Krishna the question, and that's where we're at today. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Kalosmi Lokakshaya Krishna Kirto Lokan Samhartam Iya Pravritaha Vitepit Vam Na Vifishanti Sarve Yavashtita Pracham Keshi Utaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Time I am, the great destroyer of the worlds, and I've come here to destroy all people. With the exception of you, the Pandavas, all the soldiers here on both sides will be slain. Okay, so Krishna says, time I am. What is time? How would you hazard a guess? How would you present what time is?
Change.
Time is change, yeah.
Nothing stays the same.
Nothing is staying the same. It's just constantly different things happening, especially in the material world. Everything is decomposing and getting older and so on. Would you have any idea, any other description of what time is? Can you give any?
Can't come up with anything.
Yeah, it's a hard concept, you know, but I think that's a good thing about change. Would you? Any, okay. Yeah, it's not that I'm full of all ideas like this myself, but we tend to get an idea of the universe that it happened at a certain point, you know, and as it happened, it kept on going, you know, and ultimately then, from our understanding of time, it absolves itself back into itself again, into the Supreme. And the Supreme is timeless. Like the spiritual world is timeless. There's no time. It doesn't affect our bodies. Our bodies don't get older. And that's probably the thing that we can relate to the most. Well, especially if you're older, you can relate to things starting to not decompose, I wouldn't use that word yet. That's more yet. But as things start to disintegrate, you know, gradually, that beautiful body, you know, that went through many wonderful events is now starting to, it can't digest anymore, it can hardly see, it gets backaches, you know, all these things happen through time. So time is, in the Christian sense, time just keeps on going on and on and on. In the Vedic sense, it's cyclical. You know, the time happens and then the time perishes. The time comes back into itself again. You know, so it is manifest for a certain amount of time, and then it becomes unmanifest again. You know, so it's an interesting concept, but when we realize our timelessness, which is the soul, which is eternal. We are eternal, but the where we're living is temporary. So the eternal is living in the temporary. And in this particular instance, we'll see what's going to happen on the battlefield. So I'm going to take it up here. I'll read it again. The Supreme Personality of God said, "Time, I am the great destroyer of the worlds, and I have come here to destroy all people. With the exception of you, the Pandavas, all soldiers here on both sides will be slain." So it's said to be 64 oxohinis of people are slain. Now I'm not sure what the actual measurement of that is. Some people say it was 64 million people. Other people say it was less. But I'm not absolutely sure, but it was a huge battle anyway, which went on for 18 days. Although, and this is the purport by Srila Prabhupada, although Arjuna knew, wrong, 1132, although Arjuna knew that Krishna was his friend and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was puzzled by the various forms exhibited by Krishna. Therefore he asked further about the mission of this devastating form. It is written in the Vedas that the Supreme Truth destroys everything, even the Brahmins, as is stated in the Katha Upanishad 1-25. Yasya Brahman Sachak Chanacha Upe Bhavata Udana Litur Yasya Masara Pase Chanam Ka Ita Veda Yatrasa. Eventually, all the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and everyone else are devoured like a meal by the Supreme. This form of the Supreme Lord is an all-devouring giant. And here Krishna presents himself in that form of all-devouring time. Except for a few Pandavas, everyone who was present on that battlefield would be devoured by him. Arjuna was not in favor of the fight, and he thought it was better not to fight. Then there would be no frustration. In reply, the Lord is saying that even if he did not fight, every one of them would be destroyed, for that was his plan. If Arjuna stopped fighting, they would die in another way. Death could not be checked, even if they did not fight. In fact, they were already dead. Time is destruction, And all manifestations are to be vanquished by the desire of the Supreme Lord. That is the law of nature. So who's this person that we're worshipping? He's going killing everybody. That sounds terrible, isn't it? What does that mean? How does that work? Are you happy about this, Manu?
He's not killing everybody, he's just killing the body.
Right, yes, that's the argument he says himself. You know, he says that in Bhishma and Drona, they're just being rejuvenated in that sense. They've got rid of the previous karma and are now in a better situation. So, another point is that these bodies actually don't really belong to us anyway. You know, we were utilizing them, and the mind and so on, we're utilizing them, but they're not actually ours. We think they're ours, but they actually belong to God. So it's His property, ultimately. And in fact, they're just being used. This is a little hard to understand sometimes, but are the actions and reactions of our activities are enacted through these bodies. So it's a law. It's the material law of nature that goes on in our bodies. We're not the bodies, by the way, but we identify with the bodies, and therefore that's why that these actions and reactions occur. So somehow or other, the whole of the Bhagavad Gita is to tell Arjuna that he's not the body, but he's the soul, and that ultimately at the point of death he'll go back to the spiritual dimension. So the war, in other words, Prabhupada wasn't that much in favour of using the whole analogy of the war in a kind of metaphorical way. Everyone understand that word metaphor? It's kind of like, it's as an example. It's maybe similar. It's an example of the body in the war, you know, at the fight. You know, Prabhupada wasn't totally in you know, he used it sometimes, but not very much. But you could make the argument that that is what is happening. That we are that we are identifying with the body, you know. But the fight is that we get the understanding that we're not the body. So anyway, I thought I'd just bring it up. Krishna owns all these bodies, but he's destroying the bodies. He's not destroying us. He's just destroying the bodies which are full of karma. But he wants us to get into bodies which don't create karma anymore. What activity, as a question very quick, what activity can we perform to make sure that we don't create further karma? What is the activity that we do? There's a certain word for it. It's a type of yoga. Does anyone know what type of yoga it is? It is Bhakti yoga. Yes, Bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga means that all your activities that you perform in this body, you do them as a service to God. You know, it's called Bhakti or devotional yoga. You know, so whatever we do in this world, if we do it as a service to God, then it doesn't create more karma, and therefore we don't have to take another body for that karma. If we do it just for God, and so that's what God's trying to do here for Arjuna. He's trying to get him, listen, I've already decided this battle, it's already sorted out. You can be part of it, and if you do become part of it, you're going to perform Bhakti yoga. You're doing what I want you to do, and therefore you will burn up your future karma. So that's what Krishna is telling us as well. That if we can somehow or other get a connection with Krishna, and often that connection is very practical. It can be doing the Food for Life here on Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays and so on. That's a practical Bhakti yoga. Or like next week we'll be painting the temple. Somebody can come in and help paint the temple. Because you're not actually getting any benefit yourself out of it. temple. It's not for you. We're doing it for Krishna, so that when people come to the temple, they'll feel comfortable. So that's it. That's what Bhakti Yoga is. It could be that we get married for Krishna. You know, we get married and we bring up children in Krishna consciousness. That's Bhakti Yoga. If we get married just for our own, inverted commas, enjoyment, Krishna says, Yehi samsparshayan boga dukkha yonaya evate ajanta vanta kautaya ramadana vajiyate samadana vajiyate. It means that if you act just to please the senses, you know, just to please your own senses, then I think I'll be happy if I do this, or I think it will make me happy. My senses happy, in other words. And that takes intelligence to know when you're acting just for yourself and when you're acting for God. It takes most of the time, because we're in this wheel of samsara, we're acting to please ourselves. And we're not conscious of God. That's usually what's the situation. But if we have some understanding that God is there as well, then we can act for God, and then the activity doesn't accrue karma. But in general, most people are acting because they want to get a good this for themselves, a nice this for themselves, for happiness. They're working for happiness. And you'll find that hardly anybody works for distress, isn't it? I want to go out and have a terrible day today. You know, let me go out and walk under the bus. Let me cook potatoes and cook my fingers while I put up my food to do. You don't do that, isn't it? You're trying to avoid the distress. But does that stop distress coming? Does it? Does distress come anyway? Anyone answer that question? Anyone? Does distress come anyway, whether we want it or not?
Stress comes in lots of ways.
Yeah, exactly. Correct.
You cannot say like stress comes in only a way. It comes in like for me, I'm a student.
Yes.
In my life, so like there's a lot of work pressures. Like it's a stress for me. Yeah,
Yes.
I have to do a lot of work. If I
Yes.
if I have to give the I'm living in rental place, so
Yes.
if I didn't give the rent on time, so that's for me it's stress. Like I'm
Yes.
not giving the
Yes.
rent on. That's the stress. Like stress is not just coming in one way; it's
Yes.
coming in all of way.
Correct. Yes. And even if you don't want it, it actually comes, right?
Yeah,
But
of course.
But you're studying as well. Like what we're doing is we're trying to get some happiness, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
We're working for happiness.
Yeah, of course.
But a lot of people work for happiness, right? And sometimes they don't get happiness, and other people do get happiness. Why is that?
Maybe they are doing that work in a right way, in a right direction. That's why they get happiness.
What is the right direction, would you say?
Right direction means like they are working in a systematic way. Like
Uh-huh.
what they should have to work first,
Yeah.
and then what should have to be work
Yeah.
last. That's why they are getting happiness, and that's
Yeah.
why other people didn't get happiness.
Yeah. But sometimes people even work in the right way and don't get happiness. Why is that? That's the laws of nature. It's the laws of karma. And can you do anything about the laws of karma? Pretty much you can't. You're kind of set. It's like if you get on a plane to go to America, for instance. Halfway through you can't say, oh, I want to go to Delhi, I want to go to Calcutta. No, you're going to have to go to New York. So you're in a particular body, you're going to go to a certain place. But, while you're in the plane, while you're in the plane, you could actually make plans that when you get to New York, I want to go back to Delhi or Calcutta, right? In other words, you can do something about it. You're not always, Haribol, thanks for coming. You're not always, don't go to Delhi or Calcutta. Hare Krishna. You make it so you can do something about it in the plane, and that's where you can do Bhakti Yoga. Or you can actually, a couple of things that you can do is you can do things like chanting, and you can do things like hearing. You can actually do things. You may be in a specific karmic situation, but you can actually change that karma if you start to change the intention with which you're doing your work. You know, just the intention, and that intention means that you're doing it for Krishna. You know, so it's important for us to know how to do that, and that's why we have an association of devotees. We discuss things, and we hear how we can do the same activity but in a different mentality, which will not accrue more karma. And that's really what Bhakti Yoga is. Bhakti Yoga is very practical. You can go to college and do Bhakti Yoga. You can go to work and do Bhakti Yoga. You know, you can even have some leisure, play or whatever, and they can do it in Bhakti Yoga as well. But you just have to learn how to do it. It's a spiritual technique, basically. So that's what Krishna is teaching in Bhagavad Gita. Some people say, what is Krishna teaching? That's what he's teaching. Is there any questions, any comments? Anyone else wants to ask anything?
I have a question, like, what are the steps we should teach ourselves to do Bhakti Yoga?
Yeah, that's a very good question. What are the steps we should do to do Bhakti Yoga? One of the major steps is called sadhana bhakti. Sadhana means we perform some activity, and in previous ages it was different, but in this age it's more simple. And the sadhana bhakti that's asked is that's the best, it's the most effective, is chanting the names of God. I'll tell you why it's effective, because God is everywhere, in every atom. So if we can learn to call God, you know, through the sound vibration, He will actually appear in our lives. He's there already, but we don't have the vision to see God. But if we call on Him, that's the easiest way. Previously, people would perform austerities in the Himalayas, or they would, you know, not eat, or they would fast for days, or different things in which they got some glimpse of the Supreme. But in this age, it's not possible. You can't do it. But it's become very, very simple, and this is like Lord Chaitanya's appearance in the 15th century in Bengal was to bring that, and that's why it's spreading all over the world. You know, that's why it's anybody, anywhere can take this up by chanting the names of God. And God is so liberal, it doesn't even have to be Krishna's name. It can be another name of God that you know, that's familiar to you. But it's recommended that the Hare Krishna mantra, it's called the Maha Mantra. So it means it's the great mantra in which all of the mantras are contained in it. It's just a fact. All the other mantras are contained in that. So that's one of the best things to do. And one of the best things to do is to do that early in the morning, before you do anything else. Because it's like you put on some armor, you know. Because if you don't, you'll go out and you'll be distracted by this, and you'll be, you know, it's very hard to focus. So meditation needs focus, you know. So to focus on God, that's what we need to do. The second thing which is really important is hearing. Hearing Bhagavad Gita, which we're doing now. Exactly what you're doing at this moment. You're asking questions of me. That is what Bhakti Yoga is. And the whole of the Vedic scriptures are exactly what you've been just doing. It's asking questions about the nature of reality and what is our goal here in this world. And the great sages and saints, they presented that very clearly. Bhagavad Gita initially, which is Arjuna's asking Krishna, which is what's going on here. And then even more elaborately, we have the top shelf there, you see the Bhagavad Gita. That's Maharaj Parikshit is asking questions from Shukadeva Goswami. Vyasadeva is asking questions of Narada. The sages of Naimisharanya are asking questions of Sutaguru Goswami. So this whole learning process of how to perform Bhakti Yoga is all about asking questions and getting responses and hearing responses. So they're the things to do. Read the scriptures, and chant Hare Krishna. We do it on beads. You know, we have beads in which we chant a certain amount of mantras every day. I'll tell you, I started it over 44 years ago. and it is the most profound and extensive, all-encompassing method of God realization that's available. Because I had studied other ones from Buddhism, in Christianity, and so on, but it's non-sectarian anyway. It's just so long as you're chanting to the supreme source of everything. Sorry, I don't want to get too complex about it. Is that okay for an answer? Okay, great. Good question. Any other? Rather, would you have anything to? Any other questions? Or? Okay, so Arjuna is asking to Krishna who he is. So now we're going to hear what Krishna also answered. So this is, this is text 33. Tasmat from Utishta Yashulamasva Jitra Shatrum Bhungshva Rajam Samhita Mayai Vaite Nihata Purvamiva Nimittamatram Bhava Savisachim. This is a really important verse. Therefore, as he's talking to Arjuna, Krishna's talking, get up, prepare to fight and win glory. Conquer your enemies and enjoy a flourishing kingdom. They are already put to death by my arrangement, and you, O Savisachi, can but be an instrument in the fight. Okay, you read the purport of the Prabhu. Savisachi refers to one who can shoot arrows very expertly in the field. Thus Arjuna is addressed as an expert warrior capable of delivering arrows to kill his enemies. Just become an instrument, nimitta matra. This word is also very significant. The whole world, and this is a very important point, the whole world is moving according to the plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Foolish persons who do not have sufficient knowledge think that nature is moving without a plan. And all manifestations are but accidental formations. There are many so-called scientists who suggest that perhaps it was like this or maybe like that. But there's no question of perhaps and maybe. There is a specific plan being carried out in this material world. What is that plan? This cosmic manifestation is a chance for the conditioned souls to go back home, back to Godhead. As long as they have the domineering mentality, which makes them try to lord it over material nature, they are conditioned. But anyone who can understand the plan of the Supreme Lord and cultivate Krishna consciousness is most intelligent. The creation and destruction of the cosmic manifestation are under the superior guidance of God. Thus, the battle of Kurukshetra was fought according to the plan of God. Arjuna was refusing to fight, but he was told that he should fight in accordance with the desire of the Supreme Lord. Then he would be happy. If one is in full Krishna consciousness and his life is devoted to the Lord's transcendental service, he is perfect. So, the plan is going on. Krishna's plan is going on. The best that we can do is to be part of that plan. If we don't, we start working out plans ourselves. I want to do this, I want to do that. I want to go here, I want to go there. You know, that's what we do. So, we have to find out what God's plan is. And Prabhupada says what it is there. The plan is for us to leave this material world and to go back to the spiritual world. That's what this whole world is about. It's not about economic development of Ireland, America, England, India. It's not about that. As much as politicians might say that, that's not what the world is about. Unfortunately, it's got buried. This idea has got buried, and people then are going on just according to their whatever whims are. I think I'll do this, I think I'll do that, I want you to go here, I want you to have this, and this is, and then what happens then is that what Krishna talks about in the 16th chapter starts to happen. Does anyone know what the title of the 16th chapter is? Go on, go for it. What is it? It's called the divine and the demoniac nature. It specifically, it speaks about 3 verses about the divine, and then the rest of the chapter is about the demonic nature. And the demonic nature is wanting to stay here in this world and be the Lord of this world. That's what it is. And you know what? We all have that. We all have that to certain degrees. But we're trying to give that up, you know. We're trying to give up that demonic nature. Lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, envy. Anyone ever heard of those things? Anyone ever experienced those things? Anyone not experienced those things? You're a pure love if you do. But no, they're there. But this world is controlled by the demonic nature. That's the reality. Because otherwise, all our newspapers, all our television programs, all the parliaments around the world would be making plans so that everybody could go back to the spiritual world, you know. But they're not. They all want to dominate. They all want to dominate this material world. So that's what the demonic nature is trying to dominate the material world. So I'll still posit a time in that's described. It's sometimes still described as Ram Raj. Everyone's heard of Ram Raj, isn't it? The time
Ram Raj.
Yes, the time when Lord Ram was here. That the government was perfect, you know. And you know, when Lord Chaitanya appeared in the 15th century, he displayed his Sadhuja form, which was the form of Ramachandra, the form of Krishna, and his own form as a sannyasi. So, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The way in which Lord Ramachandra wants this to be continued is for the mass spreading of the holy name. That is how that Ram Raj can actually be reintroduced into the world. And if perchance we're not able to get the whole world into that, at least we can develop that in our own communities, you know, and try to spread it, you know. But the way in which it can be done is by this chanting. That is the method for this age. It's very clearly said, by calling out God's names and by practicing. You want to see it. I mean, if you do it yourself, if you try it, you know, it's like it's a science. You have those bead bags over there. If you try to actually chant, you'll experience what I'm talking about. So this is a scientific way to achieve or to realize the spiritual dimension. And that's what the world was made for. It's made, and science is in there. God is not, you know, He's not so easily, you know, found. It's simple, but it's not easy. And the reason it's not easy is that we have a lot of preconceptions, unfortunately. We have a lot of things which prevent us. But you'll find in this chapter, okay, I'll just finish with this. This chapter is called the Universal Form. we're trying to understand the incredible greatness of God, you know, who He is, how powerful He is, how incredibly His divinity, basically. But we're also finding out our kind of tininess in comparison to, this is Arjuna, right? He's the big warrior, he's on the top battle for Kurukshetra, and he completely loses it when he sees this universal form. Because God is so powerful, he never imagined how powerful God is. So I'll finish with this, is that we actually, this universal form in Bhagavad Gita is to show us God's greatness, to show us how great God is. And when we see that, then we will see that our position in relation to God, and we'll understand that we have got our energy, we have got our life source, you know, what this thinking field, everyone here at the moment is thinking, you know, they're all experiencing. Everyone is conscious. Everyone was conscious many years ago, but their consciousness is all the way, it's a continuous consciousness to now. Everyone is conscious of that, right, for themselves. But actually, there's another consciousness of God which we're capable of. When we get that consciousness of God, you know, when we get that consciousness of God, and within our consciousness, within our personal consciousness, then we realize how great God is. And that's what Arjuna is experiencing here on the battlefield. You know, and we can all experience it as well. And then what do we do? This is the whole thing of the class, what do we do? And it's a type of yoga, what's it called? We perform Bhakti yoga to God. Because God then reveals Himself to us, and then we're able to do service to Him. Not so easy, because there's all this distraction, so many things preventing us. We don't see there's God. Maybe some people are atheistic, you know, there's no such thing as God. Governments, you know, there's only, we want to become powerful, that's all. So many distractions. But Bhagavad Gita was written for us now. It's true when it was rewritten 5,000 years ago, and it is true today. Even, you know, it's always true. So we can access that link to divinity. So any questions? There's still a few minutes if anyone wants to ask a question. Yeah.
So I think the Nimitta Matra quote, right, that you said,
Nimitta?
various instruments in.
Yes.
So obviously as a war front, it kind of made sense that Arjuna was going to a major difficulty, you know, in terms of to do it or to not do it.
Oh yeah.
So
Yes.
I think obviously at that scale it makes sense, but can you also kind of entail how that works in today's life, you know?
Yeah.
Let's say if someone is doing, let's say, an IT job or, you know,
Mhm.
someone is a student, right?
Right.
So the problems or the,
Yeah.
you know, the issue might not be at that scale as what you had.
Yeah.
So how do you connect that both to
Yeah.
something a little bit more?
Yeah. Very, very, very good question. It's like, you know, you're doing a normal job, so how can that be, you know, doing God's plan, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I want to answer another question, which is kind of contained in your question, and that is, and this is what I meant to say when I said that it's simple, but it's not easy. And, you know, God is there with us all the time, and He can show us the way that He wants us to do very easily, but He doesn't. He makes it a little complicated. You know, we do all sorts of things, and then we say, oh, I shouldn't have done that, I should have done that. Why does He not make it easy for us? And even more so, what is the reason that He doesn't make it easy for us? You know? Because it is a very good question, because why does God just tell us that? You know? But the thing is that everything that God does for us is for our. He wants us to go back to Him like anything. He wants hundreds of times more for us to go back to Him than we do. So He's plotted out a course for us, and we may not always see what to do. You know, famous quote from Shakespeare. It says, "By wrong directions find directions out." You know, and sometimes we have to make mistakes to find out what to do, but always right. better still if we can take advice. That's the whole idea of the Guru, because Krishna comes in the actual form of the Guru and tells us what to do, and gives us indication that way. That's a safe way. That is a very safe way. And that's why the Krishna Consciousness movement very much promotes the idea of a Krishna appearing in through a person, so that we can easily identify. So I think it goes back to that same thing. We may not be able to see. We're doing our job as we are at the moment. If we chant in the morning time, if we read the scriptures diligently, even what we're doing doesn't seem connected necessarily to God, we will be able to do it in a devotional way. We'll say, I can see God, but this isn't absolutely connected to you. It is in an ultimate sense, but at the same time, I want to do this very nicely for you. And that way we actually make a connection with Krishna, and we'll be surprised at how Krishna reciprocates, even in the seemingly not connected situation that we're in. So I'd say that's probably the way, that would be your first answer.
That makes sense, Prabhu.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that came to my mind was obviously, like Krishna says that whatever you do, just offer it to me.
Yeah. Yeah, Kuroshi, Adasnasi, Dadasi. Yeah.
And then in the 18th chapter,
Yes.
it says that just give up everything and
Yeah, even more.
take my ego.
Yeah.
So obviously, it might feel like, when you're looking at Excel sheets, so it might just feel a bit like, funny if you're actually using that Excel sheet to, let's say, Krishna, right? But would that be right way of looking at it? Like, whatever practical work that you're doing, just ensure that you are sort of thinking of Krishna as,
Yeah, it's like Arjuna, or Krishna gives the example, Prabhu gives the example of Arjuna in the battlefield. Arjuna may not have been chanting Hare Krishna at that point. He was a warrior, so he had to do his warrior job, he had to focus on that. So in our own activity, we need to study really hard, for instance, and it'll be, but if we're doing it back to yoga, if we do our chanting in the morning time, the more likelihood we'd be doing it for God, in that sense, So, and what you mentioned there, which was quite interesting, because ultimately, that's why that verse comes at the end, Sarvadharma Parijata Mamikamisha, give up all varieties of religious practice and just surrender unto me. So that's a very high level. That's surrender. But it is something which we will be practicing throughout. And ultimately, when we get to that level, Krishna will actually come directly to us and just, and this is what Prabhupada has said. Prabhupada has said, in that sense, he's a pure devotee example. One time a reporter asked Prabhupada, how does he know he's doing what God wants? And one of his disciples says, oh, but if God comes to him in this way and that way, and Prabhupada says, no, he tells me what to do. So that's different. But still, that is an area that we want to also to get towards, that Krishna will actually tell us what to do. And it is available. Thank you so much for that, Krishna. That's a good Krishna. Okay, so Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Hare Krishna. And so we're going to go to the next stage of the program, which is the chanting, the Kirtan. And there was another part of the science actually, which I mentioned. There was the hearing, there's sadhana bhakti, hearing and chanting, and the other is associated with
just get
Sankirtan. Yes. Yeah. And it's a part easier, no, it is easier, because you get the energy from everybody as well. When you're
So I
japping.
think it's the favorite part of Lord Shiva because
Is it? Yeah, there's a chapter in Bible that says chanting and the song.
I don't know Kirtan, right?
Pardon?
I don't know Kirtan.
Yes.
Maybe that's right.
Yes. So we're going to do some kirtan. Now we will open the altar in a few minutes, but we'll be doing some kirtan in the meantime. One of our musicians has gone to India, another one has gone to Portugal. Do we have Badri here? He's good. He's been playing Junga, I won't say fingers. But, so we'll start off with some Kirtan. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhute Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvishesha Sunyavani Paschata Deshatayani Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasa Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare
Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Shri Panchatattva Bhagwan ki Jai. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Let us all close our eyes and go inward and see the divine within ourselves. You can all repeat after me. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna